WL Louisiana News at 5 begins with breaking news.
In a story we first broke on WWLTV.com, a federal immigration judge ruled Columbia grad student Mahmoud Khalil can be deported. He was arrested during a pro-Palestinian demonstration, and then he was transferred to an ICE facility here in Louisiana. And Sharice Gibson was the only local reporter in that courtroom in Gina when the ruling came down this afternoon. She's joining us live now with the very latest on this hot case. Sharice?
Yeah, Katie, Judge Jamie Coleman decided that the federal government did provide enough evidence that showed that Mahmoud Khalil's presence in the United States posed, quote, a potentially serious foreign policy consequence, and ruled that Mahmoud Khalil is eligible to be kicked out of the country. Khalil's lawyers fought this intensely. His lawyers submitted 100 pages, apparently, of additional evidence during today's proceedings. They also called for Marco Rubio to be subpoenaed and to be given more time to sift through the evidence, which they now say DHS added 100 additional pages. Of course, that is in addition to those 2-page memos that we sent to you a little bit earlier this week. DHS presented no additional arguments or any evidence in this case outside of the original allegations, and say they are, quote, not required to give more evidence based on Marco Rubio's personal determination. Now, throughout this hearing, Judge Jamie Coleman seemed combative almost with Khalil's attorneys, more specifically Mark Vanderhoot. As the DHS read some of the allegations, I could see Mahmoud Khalil, as I was sitting behind him, making faces. These were seemingly disagreeing with what he had to say. Ultimately, DHS said the business of the Secretary of State should not be up for examination by this court, and it seems that Judge Coleman agreed.
The courtroom we just left tells a damning story. The federal government has failed to present even a shred of evidence against Mahmoud, yet they still plan to deport him. Why? Because he exercised his First Amendment right, the very freedoms this country claims to hold sacred. Maybe they are for some, but not all.
And after the judge made that ruling, Mahmoud asked if he can make a statement for the court to go on the record. He said, verbatim, quote, I would like to quote what you said last time, nothing that's more important to this court than due process rights and fundamental fairness. Clearly, what we witnessed today, neither of these principles were present today or in this whole process. This is exactly why the Trump administration has sent me to this court 1,000 miles away from my family. I hope the urgency you deemed fit for me is deemed for the hundreds of others who have been here without hearings for months. After he made that statement and the court was adjourned, Mahmoud stood up next to ACLU representative, actually the legal representative, Noor Ahmed, and he turned towards his supporters. He thanked them, and I noticed that he was smiling and kind of waving at the people who were inside of the courtroom sitting behind the journalists in support of him. There were some tears inside of the courtroom from some of his supporters, and he seemed to give some sort of nod to give some reassurance that he was going to be okay. Now, Khalil's lawyers now have until April 23rd, that is to do that appeals process, and of course to present more evidence to stop his deportation, for relief of evidence to stop his deportation. But in the meantime, remember, he still has a federal case that is in federal court in New Jersey, and Khalil will temporarily have that deportation on hold until he can face a federal judge in that case. Katie?
All right, so much more to come on this. Thanks so much, Sharice.